In this episode of Ask the Experts, we talk to Molly about identity and security and how those two intertwine and where partners have a significant role in order to make this all happen for our schools. So, thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. All right, today I am joined by the Molly. Molly helped do my onboarding when I joined Microsoft. We toured around. We went to Portland once, right? Together?
Yeah, we did actually.
Do you remember what happened at Portland? You were really ticked off at me about it.
Oh, I do actually remember that. Somebody interrupted me during my pitch in front of the district, and I was very upset about that.
No, not that part. I mean, obviously that too, but donuts, right? Didn't we not get you a donut in Portland?
Oh,
I mean, that's
true.
so much worse than interrupting you in a pitch. Was we totally forgot to get you a donut in Portland while you were meeting with a customer.
That's absolutely right. We let you off the hook. You didn't have to come to that call, and then you went to Voodoo Donuts, which is like this awesome donut place in Portland, and I didn't get a donut. You didn't even think of me. I was very upset.
Yes.
Because I was always the snack purveyor in all of our group stuff, so you guys ignored me.
Now I feel bad for bringing it up because you're going to start reminding me of it now.
No, you just have to buy me a donut the next time I see you, which I hope is soon. I don't know when that's going to be.
Besides being an awesome resource to myself and others as they join Microsoft, what do you do at Microsoft today?
What do I do today? So, I moved over to Worldwide Education, what's called the industry team. My official title is an industry solutions manager or business strategy manager, and I focus on K-12 deployment strategy for our worldwide education institutions. So that's just about anything outside of the U.S.
Yeah, I know you're helping schools across the planet try to respond to remote learning, remote everything, helping partners, helping the Microsoft field folks, just trying to make sure that we're bringing our best so that kids can learn during these challenging times and try to provide whatever sense of normalcy or better learning outcomes or whatever is possible, right?
It's true, because I believe that our tools, what we should be doing is leaving the teachers to teach and the students to learn. And our tools should secure and transform and allow and enable this type of learning without disrupting the experience of either.
Yeah, as a parent, that means a lot to me. So we have you on here to talk about identity today, and we're not going to say you're an identity expert because, you know, all of us with our growth mindset, we always believe that there should be someone out there that knows more than we do. But you are a great resource when it comes to identity, at least starting that conversation. I think that's where we want to go today. So
Sure.
To use Microsoft 365, this huge suite of applications seems to be growing. Where are our schools in terms of identity? Like, are they on-prem? Are they cloud? Where do they exist today?
Well, most schools, the majority of schools usually still have an existing on-premise data source, and a lot of those on-premise data sources are Active Directory servers. We do have a number of schools that have moved to a cloud-based identity provider. However, the source of that data generally still resides in Active Directory, and that's whether you're sourcing the data from Active Directory to a Google Cloud solution or an Office 365 or Microsoft solution, because our infrastructure, our legacy infrastructure exists across the board, as it was the beginning of directory services in schools.
Yeah, it seems very much to be the industry standard. I know I worked on the other side. I worked for the competition at some point, and most schools had that Active Directory in place, and that was the identity source, and that seems to remain true. So what about user syncing? There's AD Connect. How important is that to schools? Is that how they get to Office 365? Is that the bridge, the gateway, the tool? I don't know what you want to call it.
Well, Azure Active Directory Connect, what that allows you to do is essentially synchronize your data from your existing Active Directory server to our cloud-based identity provider, which is Azure Active Directory, right, guys? When we built Azure Active Directory, we didn't take Active Directory and cut and paste it into the cloud. We built it with the idea of how would this exist in a cloud-based scenario instead of just taking existing tenants and just, reapplying them in a situation that may not be the best way to do that. So what AD Connect allows you to do is you've already put all of this work and money and investment into this directory services, your Active Directory controller, which is sitting on-prem usually, and you already have created multiple connections out to different providers that are not Microsoft related, right? That's the key here, is that educational institutions have been utilizing Active Directory as the source for forever, for a very long time. So to have to recreate that identity infrastructure without sourcing your existing investment is not easy, or it's not cheaper. It's not cheap. It's not easy, and we want you to leverage the investment that you put into Active Directory. So when you use AD Connect, that essentially creates one large directory services environment. And initially when you heard about this change from Active Directory and Azure Active Directory, a lot of people would say, oh, is Azure Active Directory replacing Active Directory? Mm-hmm. Or is that the intent, right? And you've heard lots of people had a lot of different answers for this. But nowadays, I can pretty much tell you that we view your Azure Active Directory and your Active Directory connected with that bridge, with AD Connect, as your directory services, because we understand that hybrid is going to exist for a very long time, and we continue to support and enable and even add to those connections.
So a lot of our partners are hearing about school data sync. There is a lot of information coming out about how it allowed certain countries to, roll out teams in a matter of days across the entire country for all of their students back in May. Is that the same thing as AD Connect? Is it different? Do they work together? Are they opposite? What's the relationship there?
School Data Sync is a separate, we'll call it a solution, but it's a separate product that works alongside of all of our existing solutions. But what this specifically does, School Data Sync will actually extend the attributes from your student information system, which is where really the meat of all your student data exists, right? The attributes, what grade they're in, what school they are located at, what region they live in, what year they're graduating, all of those things that matter, rostering, everything that matters inside of an educational institution really sits in that SIS. And Azure Active Directory and Active Directory were initially built for the enterprise, so you only had attributes or fields like location or phone number or building number, right? And that's not helpful when it comes to schools having to identify and allocate access and resources to their students. They can't just use those fields. They need to know what matters about the student in that scenario. So SDS, what it does, it's a provisioning tool that allows you to extend those attributes to Azure Active Directory, and then you can therefore sort, create conditional access policies, whatever, based on what grade the student is, if they're inside of the school library based on an IP address, or whether they're just inside of the US, or if they're traveling outside of the US, you can ensure that you can track that and ensure their connection is safe. So that's where that comes in.
So just like partners might get paid to set up AD Connect for a school, there's probably a business case for them to set up School Data Sync as well to help set that up.
Oh, 100%. And this is always kind of an interesting conversation to have with our customers. And we love it when partners can lead the way in this scenario, because we know that you guys, the partners understand how important security is. And we know that you also understand how important student safety and data is. And with School Data Sync, that provisioning allows you to essentially enable and then automate lifecycle changes based on the students when they're entered in the rostering system, any changes of access, et cetera. It automates that and keeps it moving while allowing IT and all of technology support to continue to do what they need to do without having to spend a lot of time focusing on that data being, safe and connected and sortable based on what's being asked of them of the administration or the teachers, right? Teachers, administration, principals are always asking for information about how students, what they're doing, how they're doing it, et cetera. And, School Data Sync allows you to essentially keep that synchronized between all of your different systems and automates that life cycle, allowing IT to focus on the greater security picture and other IT duties, of which there are many.
I'm so glad you brought up security, because to me, with my limited understanding, I can't talk about identity without also talking about security. I feel like they're hand in hand. Your identity is it's your user, it's your password, it's your way into all of these resources. What are schools feeling about this security and identity piece? Where are schools today with their understanding or responsibility around student data privacy and security policies?
Well, student data privacy has always been incredibly important, and as is all of the filtering to put in place. And for student safety, it's not just, protecting the students' personal information. It's also ensuring they don't access data that they shouldn't access, ensuring they can't access internet sites that they shouldn't see, right? There are compliances across the world and in the US that each school districts are responsible to adhere to ensure that students can't access inappropriate data when they are on school premises, on school events, working inside of a classroom, anything, so they can't see, because the internet is a wild, wild place.
Yeah. So.
And the other side of that is that with the new normal of remote learning, security and identity just became top of mind, in that the modern security perimeter is no longer in the classroom, inside of that physical school that you're sitting at, inside of your school district or the library. It's anywhere. So now that your students and your data aren't going to be living in that one physical place, and that data needs to be accessed from multiple locations, because remote learning has now become absolutely required in the wake of this pandemic. It's become top of mind. So if there was lag time before, schools are now realizing that they need to address this now.
That's a really good point about the learn from anywhere, and the actual physical structure of a building. Going to a place used to mean something as far as your defenses, and now students are in their living rooms, right? They're sitting at their dining room table, sitting at maybe a coffee shop if it's open, engaging in learning on maybe their wireless, maybe somebody else's wireless, right? Maybe on an open network they just randomly found. And it's really hard to verify who that user is that's logging in, right? So how does the school know that it really is Johnny logging into the computer? And what if Johnny can't log in? How does he escalate that issue to get his password reset or troubleshooting? I think it's a whole new world for our IT school leaders that they are brand new to, right? That they
Absolutely. Yeah. And the enterprise, the enterprise features that we have in Azure Active Directory, they can't always be applied in education the way that you would traditionally inside of a company. So, educational institutions always have to take a different look at this, because the student and teacher experience in any learning environment is the most important focal point for them. Like, then comes security, then comes everything else. I mean, it's probably a close 1-2 right there, close first, but in the end, making sure teachers are enabled to do what they need to do to create and help students learn and get them through these, because teachers don't just teach, they coach, they lead, they nurture, they're so important to our growing student population. They're so important to every single one of us. And when the technology out there doesn't enable that over, when we start talking to, when we start talking to these institutions about, what about your student security? We can't talk about it from the perspective of, let's give them a multi-factor authentication device like a phone to ensure that is actually the student as a second way of identifying them. We need to find other easier ways to allow that remote learning that is not disruptive or create a burden, whether it's a financial, physical, even mental burden on the students and teachers to get their work done.
Yeah, it's really that happy medium of how can you offer the safest environment without stopping teaching from happening, right? So that,
Right.
Maddie in first grade isn't pulling out her cell phone to pull up her authenticator app when she signs into the computer. Is that a great security feature that her school could enable? Of course. Does that make sense for classroom-based learning? Or the fact that she's 7 and we haven't given her a cell phone yet, right? There's some natural blockers there, but it's trying to figure out.
And Joe, with this remote learning, there are also additional pressures on the parents in the scenario that they need to support their kids if they can't get into their remote learning environment, right? They need to help out. And we, with our tools inside of Azure Active Directory and our education-based platform that, all of our school data sync and all of our educational developed APIs and et cetera, they enable that with the view that the student teacher and the learning environment is what we're trying to do, right? Mm-hmm. That's the goal. The goal is it's definitely to protect data and protect students and keep their personal information out, but really it's to enable safe and secure learning so these kids can focus and do what they're doing wherever they are, and so teachers can continue to teach and enlighten and bring joy to these kids in a kind of a difficult scenario.
Yeah, and the best security is going to be in a school the security that you can't see, right? It's the policies that partners set up that the student doesn't even necessarily know that they're there, but it's protecting them, right? So whether it's geographic based login challenges or time based stuff. Anything that's going on that they can't see that allows them just to get to social studies, to math, and not have to worry about all of the security that's being done for them, right? Providing that garden for them.
Right, and all of that, our tools with Azure Active Directory and with our applications called Cloud App Security, what that allows you to do is automate and enable alerts and tracking for IT and administration to keep track of what's happening with student data, whether student and teacher data, whether data is shared, where students and teachers are connecting to the classroom from to prevent any weird incidents. We don't want anybody coming into the classroom that shouldn't be there. So there are a lot of ways to disable access and enable access based on, again, these, the identity being the tier, right? And then the factors of the identity, whether the student is logging in from China or whether what they are logging into. With conditional access, you can actually, require multiple steps in logging into different educational applications based on the security or the sensitivity of the data, right? So, a common scenario when we talk about the back end of school districts is, school districts were not necessarily configured before this crisis for staff to connect easily into resources from home because that's not their top priority. Again, we can't base any of this on an enterprise scenario where really keeping business running and keeping revenue coming in, that's what most enterprises are looking for. And security is part of that, ultimate goal right there. But with schools, that's not what we're talking about. And you just have to think about, how to talk to the customer, where to start, and to show them all of this, the things that we built specifically for student and teacher interaction and for student access and data, and differentiated conditional access so that a student isn't asked to pull out an electronic device to log in, but the financial director might be asked to connect with their phone or a phone number or one of the more adult-based tools, I'll call them, like worker-based or first-line worker tools. I think that's the word that we use at Microsoft. Allow them access to the data to keep the business running, which is what keeps the school going too.
Those are great points, and it's the start of FY21, so we rely on partners to carry this message into schools. We don't expect schools to do this on their own. Security can get pretty complex pretty quickly. Bringing in a trusted advisor to set this up is definitely the easiest way. This is not a lack of time, it's a lack of skills and experience when it comes to this type of stuff. That's really best left up to a security partner that has that portfolio of all of the other folks that they've set up and understands the depth of the solution that
Right.
that the school might already own, right, and just needs help deploying.
Absolutely. And when it comes to, so, when we talk about school data sync and the couple tools we talked about, school data sync is that provisioning tool to get, to extend those identifying attributes inside of your SIS to your Azure Active Directory or your Azure Active Directory so that you can secure based on some of those and automate life cycle tasks and all of those things. So when we talk about that, the beginning is always provisioning those identities into the cloud because you are going to get superior security and tracking and automation of access to all of these different applications, whether it's Microsoft, Google, Apple, anything you're accessing, Blackboard, all of the EDU apps. We're not asking you to not use them. What we are doing is creating a platform so you can ensure that only the people that are accessing those applications should be able to get into them. And you can make that easier or more difficult based on the use case. With that. And with School Data Sync, I just want to bring up that we do have an internal team that will work with your partners, the partners, to work with your customer and do this deployment. So they will assist the partner directly with any issues that are happening. This is a free service. And then there's also the ability for you as a partner to become a certified deployment partner in which you can work with us and be trained on, as becoming a resource so you can be that source. You will be this trusted partner in this provisioning process, and you will be the trusted partner saying, oh, look, now that we got School Data Sync set up, look at what you can see. Look at these insights. Look, I can see that, Danny just shared his math assignment with Katie, right? These are the things that you can see without ever having to ask to see it with our stack.
That's awesome, and I think you're going to give me some links to throw in the video description.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Molly, thank you so much for joining me on this. I apologize for bringing up the donut incident. We'll try to...
Don't apologize. Now I just want a donut.
Yeah, when we get to see each other face to face.
Is always the ones with sprinkles, but I also like the chocolate eclairs, so I'll be watching the mail for that donut.
Oh, you can mail a donut?
You can mail a donut.
Oh, no. All right. Molly, thank you so much. Partners, thank you so much for everything that you do to bring our mission of better learning outcomes, saving teachers time, easier to manage devices. You, the partners, bring that to become a reality with our schools. As they go through these times of remote everything, they rely on you more than ever. We rely on you more than ever. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in.
Have a great day.